Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay on this Tuesday morning. Let's do the news. So I wanted to go into the story that came out about Trump and Cohen, that Trump essentially told Cohen to lie. This Buzzfeed story. This Buzzfeed story was a bombshell that turned out to be a complete dud, because you can understand that if Trump told Cohen to lie, those are grounds for impeachment. That's the reason why Nixon got impeached, or at the very least on the first initial paper of impeachment on Nixon. So this was somewhat of a big deal. So much of a big deal that the Mueller team came out saying that's not true. That story is wildly inaccurate. Now, I want to go into the Mueller team's decision to say something about that. But you can understand why they would say something about that. If the team is trying to do an investigation and there's this parallel, completely false sense that's taking place outside of its investigation, it looks a little dicey. I mean, it looks bad from their standpoint. I would imagine that they don't necessarily want the public to have a completely wildly wrong interpretation of events. Even though the fact that the investigation itself exists creates somewhat of a wrong perception of events. Look, I've said before, I think this is somewhat of a political hatchet job, where they're using this as a way to essentially attack Trump with this slow leak that takes place through the entirety of his presidency, creating a drag on the presidency itself, and to some degree even poisoning the relationship between the United States and Russia, because anything that Trump does that's conciliatory towards Russia or tries to make any kind of agreement, the first thing that happens is the Democratic Party is going to scream, "There's evidence that he's a Putin puppet." It's looking at the world through that particular lens. Anything that takes place from the standpoint of objective reality gets filtered through that particular lens. So it doesn't matter that Trump is supporting troops in the Ukrainians as they kill Russians. Doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter that he's pulling out all those treaties. None of that stuff gets paid attention to. What it gets paid attention to are all of the things that may allow a framing that Trump is somehow working with Russia in order to do something. I mean, mind you, for fuck's sake, he's creating a space force. He's going to weaponize space and create an arms race in space. But he's working with Russia. It's nonsense. But that's it. I want to go into A, how the report essentially got released. B, the Mueller team's response to it. And Mueller had two responses, believe it or not. They gave the reporter information before the reporter released the story. Meaning, before the reporter released the story, it was to some degree understood that the Mueller team had misgivings. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given the information to their team to try to get them or dissuade them from printing the story. Buzzfeed with the story anyway. Let's take a look. This story is going to be relatively fast because I don't think there's a lot of meat on this bone, but I do think it's somewhat of an interesting story. Where is it? Oh, here we are. All right, so inside Mueller team's decision to dispute Buzzfeed's explosive, I'm going to call it a dud, on Trump Cohen. So Buzzfeed reached out to the Mueller team. That's the first point to know, because essentially it boils down to, look, we have this massively explosive story. Let me change my background. We have this massively explosive story that could bring down the president of the United States. Do you have anything to say about it? And it's typical. Mueller's team said, they stayed mum. No, we have no comment, at least in the beginning. The reporter informed Mueller spokesman Peter Carr that he and his colleagues had a story coming stating that Cohen was directed by President Trump to lie to Congress. To lie to Congress about his negotiations related to the Trump-Moscow project, according to copies of their emails provided by BuzzFeed spokesman. Importantly, the reporter made no reference to special counsel's office specifically or evidence that Mueller's investigations had uncovered. We declined to comment, Carr responded. A familiar refrain from those, essentially, that's normal. Now, the innocuous exchange belied the chaos it would produce. When BuzzFeed published the story hours later, it far exceeded Carr's initial impression. People familiar with the matter said, and that in reporting that Cohen, Trump's former self-described fixer, told special counsel that the election that the president personally instructed him to lie, and that Mueller's office learned of that directive through interviews with multiple witnesses of the Trump Organization, internal company emails, text messages, and a cache of other documents. This was the bombshell, that Mueller got evidence that Cohen told him to lie. Now, this is bizarre in and of itself, and I asked these questions the moment this came out. And I think I made jokes about this thing of, so wait a minute, Trump said, I need you to lie, and then they went back and texted each other, wrote it down, and sent each other emails, all with this specific thing of saying Trump told him to lie. This just sounds utterly bizarre, and it was bizarre because apparently it didn't happen, at least not in this way. In the view of the special counsel's office, that was wrong. Two people familiar with the matter said, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. And with Democrats raising the specter of investigations and impeachments, Mueller team started discussing a step they had never taken before, publicly disputing the reporting on the evidence of their ongoing investigation. Essentially, Democrats are screaming at the height of their lungs, impeachment, impeachment, we got him! We're going to impeach the President of the United States, and we're going to put that good saint of a man, Mike Pence, in that office instead, because he's such a better option. Mueller, looking at this, saying this is a no-go, we have to say something about this, in case they did. So within 24 hours of story publications, the special counsel office issued a statement doing just that. Now, at this point, Trump flips out and is screaming, I told you, the media is fake news. Buzzfeed stands by the story. That's amazing. The office that would know, that comes out and says, yeah, what you're reporting is wrong. And BuzzFeed says, I understand that you're the people in the know. I even understand that the reporting is about you, but we're going to stand by our story because we think that the source is wrong. I mean, because after all, the source would have to be the Mueller team, right? Unless there's a parallel investigation going somewhere else. I mean, if Mueller's team is the investigation, then the information had to come from the Mueller team. Mueller is saying this information is false. Now, people familiar with the matter said Carr told others in the government that he would have more vigorously discouraged the reporters from proceeding with the story had he had known it would allege Cohen, special counsel, Trump directed him to lie. Or the special counsel was said to have learned this through interviews with the Trump Organization witnesses as well as internal company emails and text messages. Essentially, something in this story is false. Something in this story is false. Let's see, right here. After Carr declined to comment to BuzzFeed, but before the story was published, he sent reporter Jason Leopold a partial transcript of Cohen's plea hearing in which Cohen admitted to lying to Congress about the timing of discussions related to the possible Trump Tower project in Moscow, according to the emails BuzzFeed spokesman provided. Cohen had claimed falsely that the company's efforts to build the tower ended in January 2016, when in fact the discussions continued through June of that year as Trump was clinching the Republican nomination for president. Now, Trump's story on this makes more sense to me. I thought I was going to lose the presidency, and there was no point in me giving up a deal that was going to make me a boatload of cash for a race that I was going to lose. 90% of people had Trump winning, at least based on Huffington Post, whatever you want to think of those polls. And for the most part, the media had fallen in line with this thought. Now, whether you want to call this gaslighting or not, ultimately the media fell in line with this particular point of view. And in falling in line with this particular point of view, I would imagine Donald Trump was just as shocked as many of the other people in the country. You're talking about Hillary supporters shattered. I would imagine that Trump himself was sitting there shattered in front of a wife that was pissed off at him and screaming and crying at him saying, you said you were going to lose. You said you were going to lose. So that doesn't necessarily shock me that a businessman that has a business deal tries to keep that business deal secret, thinking that nobody would ever know about this business deal because I'm going to lose the presidency. I'm going to go back to this business deal. Reality didn't happen that way through curveball. Carr, people familiar with the matter, said hoped Leopold would notice that Cohen had not said during the testimony, or during the hearing, that Trump had explicitly directed him to lie. But Leopold, who co-authored the story with reporter Anthony Comer, told the spokesman he was not taking any signals, and Carr acknowledged the point. They sent him a document. And in the document to some degree disproved what was being said. That didn't stop him from publishing the story. Let's see. Is there anything else with this one? Didn't allow me to highlight. All right, right here. Two people familiar with the matter said lawyers at the special counsel's office discussed the statement internally rather than confirming with the Justice Department leaders for much of the day. In advanced stages of the talks, the Deputy Attorney General office called to inquire to special counsel plan any kind of response and was informed that a statement was being prepared. Like, this was a big deal. Like, if what they were saying was true, the President of the United States was going to be impeached. And right here. So, Klein won versus Trump. It's unclear precisely what the record now. Alright. My signal is acting up again. I mean, it's coming in and out. It's really aggravating. Well, it's working now. So right here. So Buzzfeed stands by the reporting, though. We stand by reporting the sources who informed it, and we urge the special counsel to make clear what he's disputing, Buzzfeed editor Ben Smith said in response. Because, look, just because they said they dispute the story, what of the story do you dispute? Do you dispute that he told Cohen to lie? Or do you dispute that they found that through emails and everything? It's like, what part of the story is wrong? So fair enough. Cohen has not addressed Buzzfeed reporting, and Buzzfeed has made clear he was not the source of the story. Buzzfeed has made clear he was not the source of the story. Lanny Davis, a legal and communications advisor to Cohen, said before the special counsel statement was issued, out of respect for Mr. Mueller and Office of Special Counsel Investigation, Ms. Cohen declined to respond to questions asked by reporters, and so do I. Look, either way, we're going to figure out who's right on this, the Mueller team or Cohen. I mean, the Mueller team or BuzzFeed. And not just the Mueller team or BuzzFeed. What's the dispute? Like, what's the specific thing that the Mueller team is disputing within the story itself? Is all of it wrong? Was it that Cohen was not directed to lie? Or were there parts of it wrong? Like, so this part, fair enough to BuzzFeed, this part is true. With a story saying that the president did something like this that was an impeachable offense. You better have all your I's and T's covered, and you better be able to produce the evidence for such a thing. And BuzzFeed has not been able to produce the evidence. The only evidence you have is their word for it. And in this case, that word has been disputed by the people who would be in the know. Let me see. I think that's it for this. Yeah, I think that's it. Here's one more part, but this part less significant because, of course, a person inside the Trump organization said a BuzzFeed reporter also talked with a lawyer for the organization hours before the story posted and was warned that the story was flawed and should be scrutinized further. Mithenol said, "We trust our sources over the organization still run by Donald Trump's family." Yeah, that's what I mean. This one is of a lesser priority. I mean, Donald Trump lies flagrantly, and they act as lawyer. Hey, did your tell Cohen to essentially lie to Congress? What is the Trump organization going to say for something like that? I mean, they're going to be squirrely with that answer, and they're probably going to tell them, no, that story is flawed. So there's not really anything that you get from that case by asking the Trump organization, but you still need to ask because you may get something interesting in the answer. But they ran with this anyway. They ran with this anyway. Despite the guy from the Mueller team, despite Carr, sending Leopold from the Mueller team and giving him a part of the story that he hopes dissuaded him from running the story because it would get across that what he was doing was flawed. It did not. And BuzzFeed ran with this dud anyway. And it didn't necessarily stop the other people in the media from looking at this and screaming at the top of their lungs. Cenk Uygur making a video saying, you know, they got the president of the United States. We finally got him. So, I'll end this here. Let's see who's here. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry about the video. I will upload. I'll upload my version of this afterwards. Let's see. Is BuzzFeed the one that released the fake PP dossier? I don't. Yes, I think that was BuzzFeed. Yeah. I think that was Breitbart. No, I don't think that was Breitbart that released the PP dossier. All right. Cenk says that all the time anyway. Steele, the author of the dossier, is still trying to have contact with the FBI. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, after all, they kept saying that he was an upstanding individual and all this other stuff. I just read a story today where they were talking about the Steele dossier and how like it was like John McCain and all this other stuff was involved in getting this into Washington for them to take this as an intelligence document as opposed to being just a political political op-ed document. So yeah, BuzzFeed. That's what I thought. There's another investigation out of New York. Yes, I heard that one. That one is no BS. I mean, Trump is. Look, like I said, Trump is a business guy. I would not be shocked if there were some kind of business ties, and he get popped on something dealing with business ties. I just don't believe in the Trump and Russia stuff. Jamal, I sent an anti-Tulsi cringe video to you on Patreon. I'll check it out. An anti-Tulsi cringe video. If there is a PP dossier, how is it I never saw it? That kind of thing would be all over the place. Schwari Kate. Well, they had the PP dossier, but they're saying that it exists, but it's something that Russia is using to blackmail them, so it's not necessarily something people saw. It was just written down that there was a PP dossier, if that makes sense. Peter Schiff is starting. Yeah, that's what I said, BuzzFeed. The dossier was published in full on BuzzFeed January 2017. Because BuzzFeed has been taken to court over this, if I'm not mistaken. Or they were being taken to court over this. So yeah. Alright, I am going to end this because I have other videos that I want to do. I'll upload the original that I have on this. If this one is not, I'll check this. If it's not skipping too bad, I'll upload the original that I have. So, alright guys, I'll see you in a few. Thanks all. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. And by the way, the Patreon appreciation is going to resume in February. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is kind of like what Bill Maher does, where he cuts part of the video and he uses it for, for after show or something to that effect. To use the after show for the patrons. So essentially cut the video and use the after show with the patrons. In addition to a patron appreciation during the course of the month. So I'll end this here. I'll make a note of that. My wife is like, you should say it all the time. You should say it all the time. But I'll say it in the beginning of the next video. Alright guys. Thanks all, and I'll see you shortly.